there would be supervised parenting time by a supervisor that either was agreed upon the parties, although that was probably never very realistic. Ms. Hunter was working with an individual to be a counselor when it was discovered that person had an old child abuse felony.
Dad ordered for supervised parenting time by a supervisor with a past felony for child abuse.
Rachel Galt versus Kyle Schmidt.
Court will note the appearance of Ms. McNiff on behalf of the plaintiff.
My name is Brian Keeler, appearing on behalf
Keeler, okay.
Yep.
On behalf of the defendant, we also have Ms. Henderson, who is the GAL in this particular matter. The matter before the court is the plaintiff's motion for counseling and parenting time. I did review the response by Ms. Camfield in this matter. Ms. McNiff, as I look at the referee's order of March 14, 2024, it looks like the referee is taking care of the issues in your motion. Am I wrong?
Your Honor, yes and no. When we had a hearing with the referee on March 1st, it looks like that order issued on the 11th, and then we received it on the 13th. And our understanding was that there would be supervised parenting time by a supervisor that either was agreed upon the parties, although that was probably never very realistic, or somebody who was approved by the counselor, Ms. Hunter. Ms. Hunter was working with an individual to be a counselor when it was discovered that person had an old child abuse felony. And Ms. Hunter and my client had issues, understandably, with the supervisor being somebody who has a past felony for child abuse. And at that point, things rather broke down. And at that point, I filed the motion over concerns that the parenting time in the community, which, again, we find that that's appropriate, that Mr. Galt should be having some parenting time in the community, but we wanted that to be supervised. Subsequently, Ms. Henderson has met with the children yesterday, and I thank her for taking time off her from Easter holiday to do that. And it's my understanding that the children will have parenting time with Dad in a public place. And while we don't find that it's ideal that he have unsupervised parenting time, I think that if we put that guardrail on it, that until our next status conference, all parenting time will be in a public place, that would be something that we could live with as an interim measure to transition this child from having very limited, very controlled parenting time with Dad at Family and Children's Services to having parenting time in the community, but with that safety measure of it being in a public place, since we don't have a supervisor at this time. The child had become very distraught at the idea of having unsupervised parenting time with Dad, and Mom was having to have interventions with the counselor, have the child talk to the counselor, have the child talk to people at Summit Point in order to calm him down. It's my understanding now that he is starting to calm down and is willing to give this a try, which I think is a good solution. But what I'm really asking for today is for the court to put some parameters on where that parenting time, if it's going to be unsupervised, can occur. The other issue is we still don't have a psych eval for Dad. That's been asked by Meredith Katz. It's been asked by Margaret Hunter. He had an old one. They asked that it be updated. He still hasn't done that. Ms. Galt had hers done by Dr. Haugen in the last 6 months, provided that to the counselors. So we are asking that he follow through with that. We would prefer that it be done with Dr. Haugen. So we're comparing psych evals that are apples to apples. Dr. Haugen did a psych eval on Dad some years ago, so it would just need to be updated, we believe. And I think with those two things in place, we could move forward. And again, we would prefer this be supervised parenting time, but I've tried. I know Ms. Galt has tried to find supervisors. Mr. Schmidt has indicated to the court, to the referee, that he's tried, and nobody has been able to come up with a suitable supervisor at this point.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Henderson, what's your recommendation in this matter?
No problem, Your Honor. My pleasure. I was able to speak with Ben yesterday and with Abigail. Abigail is not really subject to this motion as currently she is not having any parenting time with Dad. Ben was very open about what he would like to happen. And upon speaking with him, he stated that he would be willing to try without a supervisor and see how it goes. It's my understanding that Dad and Ben plan to go to Airborne, Air Zoo, and Chuck E. Cheese, kind of in order. So the first parenting time would occur at Airborne, and I think that would be appropriate. Ben would be distracted by, jumping on trampolines. It's a public setting, there's some sort of, I guess, public supervision available for Ben if he's feeling uneasy or anxious. It's my understanding that Ben is just feeling anxious to have parenting time without a supervisor because it has been so long since unsupervised parenting time occurred. But after speaking with him, he was willing to give it a try. The only thing that I would suggest, Your Honor, is if the child, upon trying that unsupervised parenting time, does not feel comfortable, that he is not to be forced, and that Ms. Hunter get involved and offer a solution to the parties on how to proceed from that point.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Keeler, what's your position?
All right, thank you very much, Your Honor, and everybody involved. I do apologize that I am pinch hitting here at the last minute here. So I'll attempt to kind of keep this brief, and I know that this case is extremely complex, so I won't try to argue or read into this too much more than what's already been filed. Basically, I guess in a nutshell, just kind of beyond just standing on the pleadings as well, I just kind of have a note also as well that for whatever reason, there was a referee recommended order to the best of my knowledge, like I said, according to my notes. However, the opposing party did not file an objection and instead has filed this motion in order to kind of circumvent kind of this process and stop the unsupervised time. Other than that, again, I'm not going to try to go too much beyond the pleadings here, and I'll just say that we'll just stand on that. That's all I have. Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Well, the court has heard, again, the arguments in this matter, as well as the report from Ms. Henderson. It does appear that at least as it relates to Ben, that any unsupervised time would be appropriate as long as it occurred in a public place. And I'll leave that up to Mr. Keeler or Ms. Canfield to discuss that with their client, and recognize when I say public place, it means that you're out in the public, at a restaurant, at a activity, a facility, or, it might be the grocery store, any place that is public, as opposed to simply being alone with the child. So the court will grant that. The court will, obviously, it's appropriate. I think that they've asked for a updated psychological with Dr. Haugen. The court would grant that, and that we'd have him defendant complete that at the first available date that Dr. Haugen's available. I know he's extremely busy, so I don't want to put a time constraint on it because he may not be able to comply with that. So just state that Mr. Schmidt would contact Dr. Haugen's office within 7 days of today's date and take whatever it is, the first available date that he can get. So Ms. McNiff, I'll let you prepare that order and submit it under 7 days.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you all. You're free to go. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.